Have you ever heard a ghost story that was, well, a little bit boring? I mean, we're all used to tales of rattling chains, ghostly apparitions floating through walls, and objects flying across the room. But what if a haunting was just still? Today we traveling back in time to 18th century Denmark to uncover a local legend that has been affectionately called the most stationary haunting in regional memory. It's a story that proves sometimes the most mundane things can create the most memorable mysteries. The year is 1754. Imagine a small, cozy cottage in a Danish village, the kind with a thatched roof and a big stone fireplace at its heart. Winter is settling in, the nights are long and dark, and the only light comes from the warm, flickering glow of tallow candles. In one such cottage, a family gathers around the hearth for warmth and company. As the evening wears on, someone lights a new candle and places it on the wooden mantelpiece. The flame dances, casting long, shifting shadows across the rough-hewn walls. Everything seems normal, just another quiet night. But then someone notices it. A new shadow has appeared, one that wasn't there before. It's projected onto the wall, tall and imposing, looking unnervingly like the silhouette of a standing figure. It has a distinct head, a slender torso, and what look like unnaturally long, thin arms. The family freezes. A collective gasp ripples through the room. Who is standing there? There's no one in the room but them, and the shadow doesn't match any of their shapes. A cold chill, unrelated to the winter air, creeps down their spines. A spirit, they whisper. A ghost has come to visit their home. Word travels fast in a small village. Soon, neighbors, friends, and the simply curious start to trickle into the cottage, all eager to witness this supernatural event. They huddle together, pointing at the wall with a mixture of fear and fascination. The shadow figure stands there, a silent sentinel cast in flickering light. The atmosphere is thick with tension. People start sharing stories of local spirits, of lost souls who wander the countryside, and of omens, good and bad. Someone suggests it might be the ghost of a long-lost sailor, his lanky form a memory from a life at sea. Another speculates it's a warning, a harbinger of something to come. But as the hours tick by, something strange, or rather not strange, happens. Nothing. The shadow doesn't move. It doesn't flicker, it doesn't grow, it doesn't shrink, it doesn't reach out a shadowy hand. It doesn't glide across the wall. It just stays there, perfectly, unnervingly still. The villagers watch, expecting a dramatic climax, a terrifying moment of paranormal activity. But the tall figure remains completely motionless, locked in its one unchanging pose. The suspense begins to curdle into confusion, and then a little bit of boredom. Children who were initially terrified start to get restless. Adults who came expecting a fright begin to shuffle their feet and whisper amongst themselves, "Is this it? Is this the whole show?" The haunting has all the dramatic tension of a portrait hanging on a wall. People had come for a ghost story, and instead they got a still life. The most exciting thing that happens is when someone sneezes, making everyone jump, but the shadow, of course, doesn't react. It's the most polite, least intrusive specter anyone has ever encountered. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of stationary spookiness, the candle that started it all begins to burn low. The flame sputters, growing smaller and smaller. As the light source diminishes, the shadow begins to fade, not by moving away, but by simply dissolving into the encroaching darkness. Within minutes, the flame goes out, plunging the wall into shadow, and the mysterious figure is gone. A collective sigh of relief and perhaps a little disappointment fills the cottage. The haunting is over. The next morning, with the clear light of day streaming through the windows, the owner of the cottage decides to investigate. The fear of the night has given way to rational curiosity. He goes over to the mantelpiece, examining the spot where the candle had been placed. He looks at the wall, the ceiling, the furniture, trying to find any explanation. And then he sees it. It wasn't a piece of furniture or a coat hanging on a peg. It was the mantelpiece itself. The wooden mantel had been hand-carved years ago, decorated with ornate patterns and flourishes typical of the time. But in one particular spot the carving was odd. A flaw in the wood or an unintentional slip of the carver's knife had created a peculiar shape. When a candle was placed at just the right height and angle, this misshapen bit of woodwork cast a perfect human-like shadow on the wall. The tall figure was just an illusion created by a strangely carved piece of wood. The elongated arms were the shadows of decorative swirls. It wasn't a ghost. It was a trick of the light, a simple optical illusion that had fooled an entire village. The revelation spread almost as quickly as the original ghost story, but this time it was met with laughter instead of fear. The tale of the stationary shadow became a beloved piece of local folklore. It wasn't a story to scare children, but one to share over a drink at the local tavern, a humorous reminder of how easily our imaginations can run away with us in the dark. The event was affectionately nicknamed the most stationary haunting in regional memory, a testament to the ghost that never was. This story is a wonderful example of how our minds are wired to see patterns, especially faces and human figures, in random shapes, a phenomenon called pareidolia. In the dim, flickering light of a candle, with the power of suggestion and a healthy dose of superstition, a simple flaw in a piece of wood became a supernatural visitor. It highlights the difference between what we see and what we think we see. The villagers weren't foolish. They were simply human, interpreting the unknown through the lens of the stories and beliefs they grew up with. And isn't there something charming about that? In a world full of terrifying ghost stories, there's a special place for the one about the shadow that just stood there, minding its own business until the candle went out. It's a haunting with no malice, no message, and no movement. Just a funny little accident of light and shadow that gave a small Danish village a story to tell for generations. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one, even if it's not nearly as exciting. What do you think? Have you ever seen a shape in the dark that gave you a scare, only to realize it was something completely ordinary? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this little trip back in time for a not-so-spooky story, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more tales from the curious corners of history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.